Hello, everyone, and welcome to Trash Talk, the weekly esports phone-in. I'm Richard Lewis. And Sam, that was a very strong countdown. My producer, Sam, of course, is with me as always, my faithful companion. How have you been doing, Sam?
Better. I've recovered from my AIDS or whatever disease I was suffering from. I feel a lot better.
Yeah, come on, don't trigger me, dude. Come on.
We've all lived in Port Harwood.
Just say you had a cold, and we'll try and don't kill the sponsorship. All right. That's yeah. Oh man, it's been a crazy week in esports. I gotta say, loads to talk about. The first thing I want to say about this show is strictly no spectate faker. It's been done to death now. I did a YouTube video. If you're watching the VOD, it'll be below this. If you haven't watched it, you're a fucking cunt. Stop watching my content. And, you know, I just don't want to talk about it anymore at this juncture. So my pledge to you is no spectate faker. And I know that'll come as a disappointment to the Riot employees that are watching this, because we know how much they like to watch their content. My content, I should say. They've got a sickness, Sam. They're like that ex-boyfriend that just has to look at the Facebook page of the girlfriend who's moved on and is with someone better, you know. There's not going to be anything
What
good.
could we have been?
Yeah, it's nothing good's going to come of it. It's just going to depress you. But you have to look because you've got a sickness. That's Riot Games with my content. Anyway, you probably noticed there's a big box behind me as well, actually. Which this is how Richard Lewis is living. My girlfriend hasn't kicked me out the house yet. It's actually I had 5 of these turn up. I know.
And you talk about people having a sickness.
Yeah, but this sickness is under control. I can afford to be sick. So. Some of you will have seen before. I can't even open this fucking thing. What's going on here? Right, they sent me like 5 boxes of beer. It's Brewdog again, our friends at the Brewdog Brewery. So I got 5 boxes of this turn up, right? So a great start to my day. The fucking guy, the delivery man, called me up on my phone, and he went, "Where's your lift, mate?" Didn't even say who he was. Like I thought I was getting pranked or something. I thought this is it. The doxing has occurred. And someone called me up and went, where's your lift, mate? And I was like, what are you on about? Where's my lift? What the fuck? But where's your lift? I'm out here with 5 boxes. And I went, mate, it's 2 stories. You don't need a fucking lift. And he went, these boxes are massive, mate. What are you on about?
Bruh.
So he said, I'm outside anyway. So I put the fucking phone down. And I went downstairs. And obviously there's 5 of these boxes. He's gone, I'm not taking them upstairs. And I was like... What is this? He went, you're just going to have to sign for them in. So I signed for them. And he went off. And as he walked off, I was like, little, bit of career advice. If you don't want to lift boxes, don't be a fucking delivery man. What the fuck is this shit? Couldn't believe it, right? So anyway, good old Brewdog. And I do want to say as well, you should go out and support them. You should buy their products, not because they sponsor me or anything like that, but just because they make great beer. And there's a great story about them. If you Google it, you can read it on the BBC. When they were desperate to get funding for their business to make these wonderful, tasty beverages that I enjoy so much, they couldn't get loans from a bank because they were looking at their spreadsheets and all that bullshit. And they were like, yeah, we're not going to give you any more money. So they went to another bank and they just lied through their fucking teeth to get the loan. And they didn't hide it. Actually, now they admitted to everyone, yeah, we lied. We totally lied. And now we're successful. So suck all the dicks. And it's that kind of success story I like and want to. So you should all drink. You should definitely all drink Brewdog beers. Other thing, just again, nothing to do with anything, but I just couldn't believe it. When I got woke up by my colleague outside who, had a bad back or whatever fucking excuse he was using to not do his job, I like to go through the morning papers, sip a cup of coffee, read everything that's happening in the world, not just esports, but the world. The world's important. And I came across a headline in the Independent newspaper. I don't usually read the Independent. It's quite obvious why. They've endorsed plagiarists like Johan Hari and people like that. Again, you can Google all that shit. But there was a headline in the Independent, and it was about an Australian school. And the Australian school had a paedophile in it. one of the teachers had just been way too grab happy and wouldn't keep his, hands out of the cookie jar. And he used to play all these weird games with the kids, really inappropriate, tickling, this sort of crazy shit. Anyway, he died, and they put a plaque to him up at the school. And that's not the worst part of it. The memorial was, he touched us all. No joke, you can Google this. A memorial to a paedophile teacher with the words, he touched us all. That is a level of inept, the kind of thing I would only expect to see in esports, Sam.
That's pretty next level.
It is. Look at you thinking.
I'm trying not to laugh because it's so fucked up.
I couldn't believe it.
But how many hands does that go through and people still think it's okay? Like, you take it to the person who engraves it. Yeah, we're having it done for this paedophile, and it says he touched us all, and then the guy nailing it up. Yeah, this is fine.
You're right though. Even the last guy who's like, well, we all knew he was a bit dodgy, and even you've put that up there. What the fuck is going on? Delivery men that don't want to lift boxes, strange Australian tributes to paedophile. The world's going to hell in a handbasket, Sam. Anyway,
on the piss.
we can only fix one problem at a time. Sorry, you were going to say something, Sam.
No, no. I said it's gone to piss, if that's what you wanted to hear.
That's gone to piss. Like this show. It didn't used to be about esports. Didn't it? Also, I've got to ask, Sam, I'm looking at the stream. Do I look more... The light looks a bit more yellow than usual. I can't tell if it's the lighting or my skin.
Yeah, it is. No, it's the lighting.
Well, we need to sort that out, Sam. But anyway.
It's called UK light bulbs, mate.
Yeah.
Get fucked.
I'm doing my bit for the environment, Sam. Wait. So... Anyway, fuck all that noise. Let's talk about esports. So, lots happening in esports. I think, perhaps the big breaking League of Legends story is that Krepo's going to play for Elements. And I thought this was really interesting. Obviously I'd heard about it. I didn't have time to report it. I've been busy on other things, like celebrating the CEO from MYM, Khalid Naim's birthday, which was 2 days ago. And we should all, big birthday. Big birthday, mate. So... And anyway, so I heard about this, didn't have time to report on it. And it was really interesting, actually, Sam, because did you hear about how they were doing it? So there was scrimming, and Krepo was playing, but they were making Nif watch.
Oh, what?
That's serious.
That's like taking your pet dog along with you to pick a new dog.
It is like that. Another way I was thinking about was it's like, I don't know, you've been having marital problems with your wife or whatever, and to put a bit of spice in the relationship, you bring another guy over to fuck her, just to satisfy whatever urges she's got. And, maybe that makes her less frustrated with you. But she insists that you've got to watch while he's doing it, and he's just there going, this is how you do it, mate. Like this, yeah? Yeah? Like this. That's what's going on in Elements. So anyway... Krepo is in for Nif. We don't know if it's going to be a permanent addition, but the word on the street is that Nif will most likely move to coach. So yeah, that's going on. What else has been happening? ESL have broke away from Valve. They're trying to self-fund their own major, which I think is pretty cool. They're getting out from under the sort of tyranny of having the tyranny. It's not really tyranny.
Yeah, Valve are fine, aren't they? They seem to do basically fuck all.
Valve aren't riot, so it's okay. But still, I think it's a big step in the right direction for ESL to have this autonomy over the money. They can now make some choices, for example, like map pool that aren't linked to Valve. It's a brave step. It could backfire. It could be a huge, expensive flop. I don't think it will be. I wish ESL every success. I'm sure it's going to be good. But it brings up an interesting debate about crowdfunding and how long is it viable for? Should we rely on it? Should we not? So that's an interesting topic of discussion. You got some thoughts on that? You can call in and talk about it. There was also in Hearthstone, there was the whole Magic Amy thing. Can I talk about that, or will I get accused of patriarchy or whatever?
No, I think you can.
Can I? Well, I'll be safe. Them Tumblr feminists are mean, man. So I'm not gonna risk that. Like, we've already done a few jokes already. It's been a bit near the knuckle this episode. I don't want to get
Prague Hearthstone edition is the too long didn't read.
Yeah, there is that. So, but the whole Magic Amy Hearthstone thing. I'm sure if you haven't if you haven't fucking read about it, go read about it. But if you want to talk about it, call in. Back to League of Legends, we had Piglet. He's going to be out for another week. And interestingly enough, they managed to beat TSM. without him. And Keith had a great. But I mean, that game was crazy. They nearly kind of threw it. There was a last stand, Battle of the Alamo shit going on, but they managed to get the win over TSM. Step in the right direction there for Team Liquid, and looks like Piglet's going to be out for another week. And what's interesting is the management have come out and they've been saying, "Look, we're telling Piglet what he needs to do to improve, and he ain't doing it." He just ain't doing it. So what's going on there? Is Piglet's career over before it began? Maybe you've got an opinion about it. Let's see what you think. And finally, in CSGO, big talking point is NIP and the whole Makalele thing, which has been one of the most poorly handled transfers I've ever seen in the history of esports. It's actually fucking horrible what's happened to Makalele. I'm surprised, but anyway, they've decided to go with Arlu, and they haven't had a great start to life. After that decision, they've lost a few games. They lost to Titan and whatnot. So, what do we think about this new direction NIP are taking? Do we have any insight into whether it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing for them long term? That's what's been happening this week. Right, Sam, get me a caller.
All right, first we have Eric Cherry, and he wants to talk about NIP.
Good timing. It's like we planned it, and it's segued in quite nicely. So we're going to bring Eric in. Eric's called on the show a few times, I believe. He's also written some stuff for thinkpeace.gg, which, they sponsor the show sponsor. They don't really sponsor it, but, we put it on there because we can't get a sponsor because no one wants to sponsor us because of me. But anyway, Eric, are you there, brother?
Yeah, I'm here, man.
It's good to hear from you again. So, you want to talk about NIP? And as I just said in the introduction before you came on, obviously they've been having a bit of a crazy time and made some interesting decisions about how they've been handling the removal of Makalele, and technically not a removal at this point because my understanding is Makalele's still under contract, and they're even saying to people, "We'll loan him out." Which, anyway, we'll get into that, no doubt. So, what are your views about the direction NIP are heading in?
I'm not really a fan of the direction NIP are taking. I think they were doing quite fine with Makalele. I think the big problem with NIP is they just assume this is like 2012, and if they're not first at every single tournament, then they're way underperforming. But I mean, if you look at the teams that were around then and the teams that are around now, there's so many better teams. Like you've got Fnatic, you've got Titan, you got Envy, Virtus Pro, and the new team Dignitas looks like it has potential. Mm-hmm. So I think they're just kicking Makalele off because they think he's like the biggest problem. But I think he played quite well. They've been.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, I mean, first impressions for me were that if they wanted, and look, no team's going to win everything. You're right, this isn't 2012. The game has developed way beyond that. There is not one team that's going to dominate CSGO in its current form for a long, long time. I think the days of seeing like these dynasty teams are over. And thank God, actually, because I had to put up with it for years in Counter-Strike Source, where it was always one team at the top. They won every event. And it was like, I know, it was like being the son of a billionaire who insisted that, you can't, you don't get any money, you've got to make your own way in the world, and you're just waiting for them to die so you can live. Please die, give me the money, right? And that's what it was like being a CSS fan for 3 fucking years. Who won? Oh, Very Games. Yeah, all right then. That was the conversation that we had for like 3 fucking years. It was insane when another team, even challenged them. When they did lose, it was like, wow, is this it? A new era? And then another week would happen and they'd just win the next tournament. So I wouldn't want it to be like that either. I think that's hugely detrimental to any esport when one team dominates for a long period of time. Not because they don't deserve it, not because I don't like it, but I think to the neutral, it puts people off, and everyone's developed. NIP was so, what's the word? They were pioneers, They made everybody take the game seriously, behave professionally, put the hours in, put the work in, salary their players. And because of that, everyone's caught up to them now. NIP shouldn't feel bad if they only go this year winning 3 or 4 tournaments, because that's going to be probably better than most teams are going to do, even new teams like Envious and people like that.
Wait, what did you say at the last minute there? My headset cut out.
Oh, that's all right. Sorry, I thought I'd just thrown you off. I thought you'd just gone into a trance. Like, fucking hell, Richard's doing it again. I want to talk. Why can't I talk, Richard? No, it's okay. I was just saying, I don't even think teams like Envious and guys like that will dominate. I don't think, I just don't think there'll be one dominant team. And NIP had proven that they could have been one of those teams with Makalele because, they've done so well. 2 finals and then a tournament win at the Zeus Winter Invitational.
Yeah, I mean, but I kind of want to talk about maybe Alu and Delpan here.
Go
So
for it.
it seems like Nib was trying to try out new players, Alu and Delpan, except Alu and Delpan both look like they were rather inconsistent. I think Alu played a little better, but it looks like I don't know. I didn't see them as an upgrade to Makalele at all.
No, I don't. I mean, and the thing is, Makalele wasn't. I mean, look, I'm just gonna put this out there, and no doubt I'm gonna get shit on for saying it, but I don't see the attraction with Delpan at all. I think the Delpan trial was basically, it was leveraged by personal friendships. Obviously, Pitta being the coach. And him knowing Delpan, I think he was like, look, let's just give him a try. And I've seen this happen to Delpan quite a lot. He comes into teams and everyone says, yeah, let's give him a try. He can be amazing. He's got a bit of a weird attitude. He's hugely inconsistent. 1 minute he's being accused of cheating. The next minute he's being accused of being the worst player in the world. And that's not good. You need consistency to truly succeed in a game like Counter-Strike. So, yeah, Delpan was a really strange decision, and I think it was just because of his relationship. Now, Arlu, on the other hand, I'm intrigued by this. I think this is a real tough call for me. I think Arlu is probably the better all-round player than Makalele, based on the Makalele we knew. But the Makalele I saw be MVP in a semi-final and a final at the Asus Winter Invitational, that Makalele was better than most players playing the game currently. And he showed a level of development and a level of advancement, and that's why I'm completely perplexed by the decision to, just as he's getting better, just as he's, proving to be better in these clutch games as well, let's not forget, semi-finals and finals, they decide, well, we need to try someone new. It's insane to me. It's crazy.
I actually also like to say, if they are going to get rid of Makalele, I do think they should keep Alu. But another reason why I don't think they should keep Delpan is it seems like he would just be bad PR. Because I noticed after Thorn releases Thorn's thoughts on Delpan, he talked about how he was cheating, and I looked at the replay, and it's very obvious he was a wall hacker. And he goes onto Facebook, and he's like, Thorn's an idiot. I was never a wall hacker. Don't let him accuse me of this. That just seems like a bad attitude.
Yeah, well, look, here's the thing. I can think of nothing worse than if you're innocent as a player to be accused of being a cheat. It would upset me immensely. And I've always said this, as far as I'm concerned, Flusher needs to... Flusher's never satisfactorily explained what's been going on with his shit. He's never explained it in a way that makes sense to me. Lifting up the mouse, mate.
His mouse up.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, dude, are you telling me if I go into a matchmaking game and, do this, I'm going to fucking be locking onto people through walls? Because if it is... fuck it, man. I'm going to learn that shit. That's the future. But we both know that's a pathetic explanation. And that's not to say he's a cheat. I'm not saying he's a cheat. I've got my suspicions. Everyone's got their suspicions. I think it's more likely than not. But here's the thing. There hasn't been 100% ultimately. We haven't got all the way there. And as a result, I often imagine what it must be like to be Flusher, alone, crying, comfort eating, because everyone thinks he's a cheat, and he isn't. And the idea of Flusher being innocent actually makes me really sad. The idea that this guy could get so much hate and be completely innocent, it would terrify me. Now, the only thing we've really got to go on with Delpan is that, of course, he absolutely did. It was unequivocal that he had cheated in the past in 1.6. I don't subscribe to that once a cheater, always a cheater bullshit. I don't believe that at all. I think that's really, there's no evidence to substantiate that whatsoever, Nothing psychological. Some people do reform and learn from their mistakes, and they'll never do it again. But it's a tough one for me. I've seen games where I've watched Delpan and I can't believe what I'm seeing, and then I've seen him go to a LAN event and be absolutely awful. And this is what I mean. So either he is a wildly inconsistent player, and in which case he's not suitable for a top team anyway, or he's bullshit, and you're better off staying well away from him for that reason. And I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm just saying it's got to be one or the other based on the evidence.
I see. Did you watch the Starletters game of Nip versus Titan?
I wanted to, dude. I really did. And you know, I this week's been a little bit crazy. Spectate gate, as people are calling it, which is probably the worst gate I've heard in a long time. Really dominated my workload. You know, I've been talking to lawyers.
Gate.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is worse. Yeah, so I've been incredibly busy with that. So I haven't even had time to watch any games. I barely caught LCS games. But that's okay. I'm just going to talk about them as if I did watch them anyway, like most League of Legends analysts do.
Well, I'll give you the TLDR what happened in that series. So in one of the rounds, Kenny S basically turned into God for 2 seconds and got a quadra kill and a 1v4 with an op. He was holding the side and Nip rushed in and he just went crazy and killed everyone. I mean, it was it almost felt like it was a throw on Nip's part because you just don't see something like that happen.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. It's a tough one. You know, I heard, obviously I saw the results, and I just think this is what happens when you deviate from a template that was working. And obviously it's going to take some time for them to adjust and implement new players and everything else, and everyone's gonna find that rhythm with each other. I mean, you know, there is a slight linguistic issue as well, of course, with Arlu, and you know, I don't think it'll be a big problem moving forward. He speaks broken Swedish, and they all speak very good English, but of course they're used to calling in Swedish. So I don't know. I mean, when you're talking about elite level Counter-Strike, fractions of seconds absolutely matter. The difference between being able to communicate something clearly as quickly as possible and laboring just a little bit can be the difference between getting a kill or not getting a kill. It's that simple. So, you know, I definitely, you've got to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're going to get it right. And I think Ali's a tremendous player, and he showed that again, you know, when he was playing with 3D Max, just a standout talent, incredible, you know, all-rounder, really good with an AWP, you know, can rifle, can be aggressive, can be passive, just, you know, a real talent. So I think Nip, they might get to a place where they're better off eventually. There might be an argument to say that Arlu's highest point is higher than Makalela's highest point. But I think currently there wasn't really a great deal of difference between them. And on form, you would probably have to say, given that Makalela spoke Swedish as well, that would be the guy that you would pick. So it does seem incredibly strange, but I think Nip will go on to win tournaments this year, whoever their fifth player is. They've got incredible strength and depth. They've got a core four that have played together since the birth of the game, and they'll achieve things regardless. But Arlu can definitely take them to the next level, you know, if it clicks and they have enough time to put it right.
All right, so to end this, what are your predictions for the major? Is Nip going to win it?
Man, I don't know. I know it's technically not that far away, but I just feel like there's still so much that can happen between now and then. I don't really want to call it. I keep having this recurring dream where it's just me and Taz down a bar, and Taz is holding a trophy and saying, "I fucking told you so. I fucking told you so." And you can't write. You know, I don't know why that's happening. Maybe I'm just mental. Right, maybe I'm just crazy, but I don't know, man. I really wouldn't want to. I really wouldn't want to call Katowice at all.
So, right, like it might think you're mental.
Well, yeah, thanks for that. And you're never allowed to call in again. So no, I'm just kidding. But look, it's great to talk about Nip, man. I think you make some good points, and it's definitely one to watch. I certainly, you know, I know all the guys. They know I got nothing but love for them. I want them to do really well. But I still think the way the whole Makalela situation has been handled is really poor. And unless there's something that we don't know about, which realistically they should make public at this point, I think a lot of people would like to know what's really gone on, because everybody watched a team that was getting better, watched a player that was getting better, and watched a team that was going to go and win things in 2015. But look, Eric, great that you called in to kick off the show. Always a pleasure. I'm sure I'll hear from you again, and you enjoy the rest of your evening. You can go and watch Reflections now.
All right, you too. Catch you later.
Yeah. Peace out. So there you go. That was Eric Cherry talking about Nip. and Arlu coming into Nip and whether or not it's going to work. And like I say, I think it's going to take some more time. I think they've probably counted themselves out of the next major, maybe. I don't know. It's the great thing about CSGO right now is we're getting stuff that's kind of too close to call, and anything can happen. And it's a real exciting time for the scene and for the game. And I'd certainly hate to be an analyst. I don't know how you would call it at the moment. I was waiting for you to chime in there.
Sorry. I didn't know you were actually coming to me for an opinion. That's a change. I don't know. I was going to say,
let's check it out. You dingus.
Minnesota always have like an extra, I don't know, 50% chance to win when they're in Poland, so I wouldn't call it either.
So as you
check it out.
As you heard when I was talking to Eric there, Thorin, being my best buddy of all time, releases the interview that we did together, a 2-hour reflections, which is kind of looking back at some key points of my career. I think that's the kind of idea of the interview. We kind of did it on the fly. It was really cool and unprepared, so I had a good time. Thorin's a great interviewer. It was a funny conversation. That's out now. I'd urge you to go and look at it. You know, I like Thorin so much I don't even care if you stop watching the show and you go and fuck off. Watch it. You'll be back next week. It's okay. I'm secure enough. But check it out anyway.
Check it.
Hi. Because Thorin's interviews are always good.
Here we have Ricardo Dingus.
So, Sam, let's do another caller.
All right. Next, we have Logan. I don't know if you remember Logan from a while ago.
Yes, I do, the manly motherfucker.
I've been waiting for him to call back for ages, and he never did. But finally, he's chimed in, and he wants to talk about is your thoughts on league exclusivity in esports and in CSGO. Because recently, where C9 were forced to forfeit a game by, was it CEVO or ESEA? ESEA, because they had a face-it match, basically.
Yeah, I saw this tweeted about, and I'll be honest, I didn't really follow it that much. It was, like I say, a lot of the CS drama's been off my radar, so I'm looking forward to hearing about this one and getting Logan's opinions. Logan, can you hear me, brother?
Hello, Mr. Richard. How's it going? And
it's good, man.
Sam.
It's good. Good to hear from you again. We were worried when you didn't call back. We thought something terrible had happened.
Well, I figured you had it covered, so...
I mean, we kind of do, but there's always a Logan-shaped hole whenever you're not there, man. Just, you know, you're a big part of what we do. We all love you dearly.
Thank you.
So I got to admit a little bit of ignorance here. I don't mind saying it. You know, like I say, I've been so absorbed with League of Legends stuff going on. I did see this drama get tweeted about. I did read the Reddit threads kind of before I fell asleep in a bit of a daze, and I remember as I drifted off going, that's a bit shit. And I was asleep. So tell me what happened and tell me why it was good and or bad.
I probably know about as much as you do. So Shazam and Cloud9 were playing in a face-it match, and I guess midway through the match, they had some scheduling problems with ESEA, and their match was scheduled to start when they were mid-match for Face-It, and they pretty much told them that you need to leave your Face-It match immediately and come into our ESEA match, or we're going to lose your league match for ESEA, which is kind of a show of force. I think there's two ways to look at it. One is that Cloud9 was irresponsible to schedule two matches so close together, and it's not really a big deal. The second is that ESEA, you know, this is probably what I think, kind of see themselves as the top dogs and feel like they can just force teams to do whatever they want. Like, so you're gonna have another match at the same time as ours. Fuck the other league. You're gonna come play in ESEA, which I can understand that from their perspective, but it almost feels like they're making a play for league exclusivity, where they don't want top teams to play in other leagues. I mean, LPK even went as far as to say he called other leagues penny leagues compared to ESEA, which is laughable considering ESEA had been surpassed in prize pool until this recent announcement of the, what was it, like $250,000 season or a year, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, LP Kane, dude, this guy, Like,
Can I say one quick thing about LPK?
yeah, please do.
So after the iBuyPower scandal, and they banned all the pro NA players. Everyone was back on there. Everyone like got onto an ESEA hype train, and then the second they fuck something up again, everyone realizes how shit they are.
Yeah.
Well, how shit LPK is.
Well, look, dude. So here's where I stand on LPK. And this guy, right? Look. I'm just gonna come out and say he's a fucking embarrassment to ESEA. I know a lot of people who work there feel that way, the way he's always conducted himself. But because he's like a co-founder, equal owner, he can't go anywhere. He is a rock. He cannot be got rid of. And people, all they can do is try and rein him in. I mean, this is the guy who came up with the idea to turn the ESEA client into Bitcoin, a Bitcoin miner. Which I mean, if you say, well, be careful, Richard, you're gonna get sued. I would argue it's a very strange fucking coincidence that he was talking about it and joking about it before the client actually did it, and then yet he still had the audacity to try and pass it off as what was it, an April Fool's joke. Now, I've never really liked the guy. I think the way he handles himself is monstrously arrogant for someone that's realistically achieved so little. And when he talks about other leagues being petty leagues, I think this is the guy that doesn't really understand where CSGO is heading, and that's what's going to be good for the scene is entering into this spirit of cooperation, everyone getting around the table, sharing ideas, sharing resources, talking about the best way to do things, and helping the scene grow rather than having that old adversarial mindset where ESEA is a competitor to every other league out there. We know it's not true. We know they've got a monopoly in the NA scene currently as things stand. And there's no need to be detrimental about other leagues that really don't necessarily overlap with what you're trying to do anyway. It seems a bit weird. I think maybe the face-it pugging system is more of the issue rather than the league itself. That said, LP Kane, he's made a point in the past, and this is the shield he will hide behind on this particular issue. And I think it's very hard to disagree with him. One thing that, he's not stupid. I'll definitely give him that. And this is a very clever, manipulative use of language. Whenever anything like that happens, whenever anything like this happens, he always says, teams need to be held to a professional standard. That's what he says. He always says teams need to be held to professional standards, and teams need to learn how to manage their shit and handle their shit better. Now, no one's going to disagree with that. No one's going to come out and go, yeah, you're wrong, actually, LP Kane. Teams need to act less professional. No one's going to argue the counter to that point. But you can't use it as an excuse when you are being, what I see on the surface here, is being very unreasonable. Now, CSGO is entering into a saturation point. We're going to get what Dota 2 had quite recently, which is where we're going to have more tournaments than we've ever had before, and players are going to have to make some difficult choices about which leagues they commit to, which ones they can go to, which events they can attend. And that's fine. They need to make those choices. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be an asshole and make those choices even more difficult just because you can. That nobody wants that. Everybody wants the top teams to attend as many events as feasibly possible, and that enriches the whole scene and enriches all the events. You can't just turn around and say, well, fuck them. That's a rival league. They're trying to go in, so we're cancelling their game. Get fucked. I don't think that's a very healthy attitude for the scene. But as you rightly point out, ESEA generally do have a tendency to think about only themselves.
One way I see it also is that if ESEA wants their players to be... I feel like this is a point in time where CSGO is growing to a point where if they want teams to act in a more professional manner, that they should start focusing in more on invite and paying the teams maybe like wages based on how many matches they play, or just like a baseline amount of money for competing in the league. Because if you want people to be exclusive to only your league or only show up for ESEA matches and disregard other things, when it's getting to this point where, like you said, it's getting saturated and it's getting really competitive, this is a time where it would make sense to pay players to show up to your league. You could say that the prize pool at the end is worth it, but correct me if I'm wrong, if you don't get top 4 in ESEA invite for a region, so like NA or EU, I'm pretty sure players don't earn any prize money from the league.
Yeah, I think that's how it works. Yeah.
So if you're the 5th best team in North America, if you're the 5th place invite team, you're going to get nothing. Where if you're a CEVO Premier team, you'll get like a couple grand. Or you will earn more money effectively getting 1st place in Open than you would being 5th place in invite. That I think people really don't think about that. And when they look at how teams are making decisions on what matches they're going to show up for and how they act, if they act in a professional manner or not. Because really, this is just an online league, and if you're not going to be able to get to that top 4 threshold, it doesn't mean a whole lot to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what, ESEA could find themselves backed into a corner here if they're going to take quite a harsh stance, because at the end of the day, say what you will about other these other petty leagues, they're offering they're not offering petty prize money by any stretch of the imagination, and they are more flexible and more accommodating to players. I mean, face it, for example, there's a real community spirit there. Those guys do give a shit about the community. They do care about what's good for the community, and in fact, they were one of the people that were the driving force behind getting everybody round a table. So when the match fixing thing was happening back in August of last year, they were the guys who were saying, we need to talk about this. We need to get some rules in place about this. Let's get everyone around the table. And other people were like, nah, you're never going to get no majors. But it was like this real weird e-peen, dick measuring fucking contest that was going on. And they were like, look, we don't care about any of that, man. Like, we just want to do good work and we want to provide something for the community. And we think everybody can have a space, and everyone, and everyone's come around to that way of thinking now. Your ESLs, your DreamHacks. There's a great spirit of cooperation right now in the scene. And ESEA has an attitude, like I say, that's completely contradictory to the way the scene is heading. We talked a little bit about it at the start of the show. We're getting to a stage where ESL are even saying we don't want to rely on Valve. We want to kind of stand on our own 2 feet and run things our way. And what's going to be essential to doing that is having the support of the teams and the orgs and other leagues, so they don't clash with qualifiers and things like that. Remember, this is a few years back now, so I don't know if you do remember, but I know you've been around a long time, Logan, so maybe you do. Do you remember when ESL and MLG and DreamHack announced they were doing one big cooperative effort? Do you remember that?
Was that the DreamHack Valencia ESports Congress?
Before even that, they announced that what had happened was an MLG and a DreamHack event had clashed. And everyone was up in arms about it. MLG caught a lot of heat about it, and I think coupled with the fact that MLG had a pay-per-view option made them particularly unpopular. But it was bad for business, these types of clashes. So moving forward, ESL, MLG, and DreamHack said, we're all going to work together. Now, it was bullshit, actually. I mean, they didn't do a whole lot together. They just made the announcement. I think the only thing they worked on together was the fucking press release. But the one thing they did do was we will talk about dates and plan dates and propose it, so there didn't need to be a clash for an event every weekend. The community wasn't split, and that's where we need to be right now. And the only way you're going to get that is by working alongside people, having open channels of communication, and not being derisory about your competitors. There's esports is growing. It's going to be huge. It's only going to get bigger. And the number of investors that are coming into it right now and the number of sponsors, there's no need. We haven't even divided all of the pie up yet. There's no need to be fighting over the slices. So, yeah, very strange by ESEA, I got to say. And, of course, it makes me a bit sad, actually, that Cloud9 had to suffer, because they're one of the most professional teams out there. That's got to be said as well. Of all the teams to kind of fall foul of this, you won't find, certainly some teams will be equal to, but I don't think you'll find a better managed team than Cloud9.
Yeah, Jack at Cloud9, he's done a really good job of building up that organization. It's really been fun to watch them rise, where you've seen some other North American organizations, I don't know if you can see my hat, kind of falter.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know, it's a real shame of all the organizations. I mean, I'm not saying ESEA should make exceptions, but certainly they and I'm not too sure about saying this, but I think I will. And let's just say, when I was doing the investigating into the match fixing, you know, there was people giving testimony that they talked about it with LP Kane when it first came out back in August. You know, I don't get why ESEA want to be these moral arbiters and try and put themselves out there as being the best. You know, we're the number one we're the people that should be the driving force behind professionalism. When in actual fact, ESEA have done lots of stuff that is incredibly questionable, and LP Kane's been at the forefront of all of it. It does make me a little bit sad. I've said this. One of the great things about the ESL expansion is that you would expect there to be better events and better tournaments and everything else, you know, going on in America, and that there would be some competition for ESEA, who have acted so deplorably for years because they've got a monopoly. But we haven't arrived there yet, and I'm really hoping MLG and ESL are going to push them a little bit harder this year and make them revise the way they treat their paying customers and treat competitors that want to sign up to their league and give them legitimacy in this particular space.
I've got one comment to make on what you just said, and I've got one last question to kind of propose.
Yeah, sure.
I remember a long time ago, I don't know if I remember this for ESEA, when Blight Gaming was still around, and they were sponsoring a lot of teams. You had a lot of even more shady than what you have now, organizations picking up teams, and then when it comes time to go to ESEA land, they would like tell them, yeah, we're going to reimburse you for your travels, but they wouldn't end up paying them in the end, and teams would just be outed some money. I remember they had a rule for I think it was like $500. If you're considered like a esports organization, you had to pay like a $500, like when you rent a house or something, you put down a
like a deposit.
You put down a $500 deposit on your team at the start of the season so they can get to the LAN, and if they didn't go to LAN, you get paid back at the end of the season.
Yeah.
But when I saw this title and I saw this crop up with the fighting between the different leagues and ESEA kind of forcing Cloud9 to forfeit, I know back when DirecTV came in with CGS and they kind of bought all the franchises, and they kind of wanted to make an esports league as like a feature to help sell DirecTV. It didn't really make sense, but now we're in a point where in esports you have competing streaming websites, and I don't know what you think about this idea, but I think it wouldn't be unruly to see in the future if you have some sort of, it probably wouldn't be Twitch, but some competitor come up and maybe try to take an exclusive chunk out of one of those scenes, like maybe Dota 2, or I think CSGO is prime real estate to do this right now, where if you came in and you just came in and made your own league and got a whole bunch of organizations to agree, like, we'll only show up for these matches, it'll be like a LAN event. I think something like that could happen, and it would be interesting to watch. I think MLG is probably the most poised to do it, seeing how they've done something similar for MLG Pro League.
Pro League. They did negotiate, didn't they? They did negotiate. They were negotiating a deal for Talked before the match fixing thing came out, and obviously that deal fell through. Although they did acquire still some of the talent, I don't really know what's happened with that. Because certainly, and it's really interesting actually. I mean, I talked to Josh, you know, I've talked to him since, you know, and I got to say, you know, we've got a lot of history together, and I'm a little bit saddened that things have worked out the way they have. I think it's still the right thing for the competitive scene.
Yeah.
You know, I do believe in that, but just on an individual basis, I do feel a little bit sorry for him. You know, he tried to do some casting the other day, and everyone complained, and he got removed from it because people didn't want him there. So he's got a long road back to redemption, a long way back to forgiveness. But what, you know, MLG definitely were looking to do that, and you know, we've seen him do it with the Halo teams, and I think you're right. I think we could see something like that. I don't know. I don't think it'll be territory ESEA will particularly stray into, but deals like this are already happening. Think about the Twitch acquisition of the Good Game Agency, buying a collective bargaining package of some of the top brands in esports. That's a relationship that on paper makes no sense. You know, Twitch are meant to be partners to everyone they're partners to, yet the teams in the Good Game Agency they technically own, so why wouldn't they give them preferential treatment, right? I mean, that would
Yep.
make sense. You own the property. They're your employees, but you're meant to be treating all partners equally. So there is an argument there for a conflict of interest. You know, I'm broadcasting on Twitch. I'm partnered with Twitch. Hell, I'm wearing a Twitch hoodie that they sent me at Christmas. I love Twitch. You know, they're great guys. They've been good to me. But, you know, I got to be honest and say I still think the acquisition of GGA was a bad idea. And there needs to be some real clear boundaries on how it's all going to work. Because, you know, there's teams that aren't in the GGA that probably feel like they're getting short shrift right now. So I think the deals you're talking about are already happening. I think we'll only see more of them moving forward. And if I was a betting man, I'd probably say MLG are the guys that are probably going to do it and sweep up a few franchises, I guess they would be called at that point. You know, like the days of, you know, like you say, CGS with complexity and optics and people like that. So I think we probably will see that happen this year. MLG are making a big push for CSGO content and for really putting out their premium content on their streaming platform. So, you know, watch this space, man. I think you're going to be quite smug when your prediction comes true.
Yeah, I think that's CVOP just announced that their final or playoffs are going to be at the MLG arena. So I really think that MLG is going to step in here, and it's going to be an exciting time to watch. Hopefully Azubu doesn't try to do anything, but I honestly think that's not the right move as well for MLG, because right now Twitch is the big platform everyone's going to. If you want to bring viewership to your platform, you need to create some original content, and I don't think I don't think any other streaming platform has done this yet, except for maybe the DreamHack Hearthstone Championship was exclusive to their platform.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
So food for thought.
Game. Hello.
All right, I think I'm gonna leave now.
What happened?
Bruh.
I don't know. I ran out of stuff to talk about.
Oh, okay. Right, awesome. Fucking hell, Logan. What? You spammed me out there. I was like, what happened? Because I didn't know if someone had just come in and fucking, you know, shot you or something. It was a strange pause, but it's fine. We love trash talk for its awkward moments. And as I said at the start of the call, we love you and do call back. But look, I think you're absolutely right. I think ESEA have got, again, some growing up to do ultimately. It's fine to hold people up to a professional standard, but as LP Kane should know, holding people up to standards only works if you embody those standards yourself, and he absolutely doesn't. So look, thanks for your call, Logan, and I'll let you get away, mate.
Take it easy, man.
Yeah, you too, bro. There we go. So good points made. Bit of a strange end to the call, but Sam, you were spinning out there as well, weren't you?
That was an awkward call, that one. Dude. Hello.
I was like, hello. I thought you just got cut off. So
I'm just fucking sick of talking to you, mate.
That's pretty much what he said. So, look, I think with that in mind, what we'll do is we'll go for a break at this point and try and get some less awkward callers to come on. You're more than welcome to talk about anything that you want here on Trash Talk. All you got to do is have call.trash talk on Skype, and we will see if your call is worth listening to. Anyway, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back to talk more esports. Don't go too far. Hello and welcome back to Trash Talk. Just want to say apologies there for the fucking super awkward death stare that we had to do. Usually when we do transitions, it's not quite that long, but you know, it was one of them, wasn't it? I was looking into your soul, and yeah, it must have been horrible for you all. So I apologise profusely. Once again, Sam.
XSplit, don't blame me. I don't control transition speed. I click the buttons. That's all I can do.
Have you ever heard the phrase "a bad workman always blames his tools"? Have you ever heard that?
Have you ever seen the phrase "pay a monkey peanuts, get monkeys for the job"?
Well, I've heard variations of that. Yeah, you've got your fan on again.
Oh my god. They can't hear this, only you can, so you cry about it.
What, it's honestly, I just don't get why you do it, because I know you live in Wales, and the sun hasn't visited that part of the country in a long, long time indeed. Like,
even the sun has left.
If you look at an up-to-date map of Britain, it still says "Here be dragons" just over Wales. That's it. They don't even know we have a civilization. But anyway, no, it's good work, man. You're doing real good work, and
you're trying your best.
No. I mean, I'm not even disappointed. Obviously, there's a level of competency that you'll grow into as the more you do it. So just keep
when
up.
You grow up.
Exactly. Just keep doing what you're doing, and you know you will get better at it. Don't get disheartened. Yeah. Okay. There we go. That's my little pep talk for Sam. So, Sam, while we're talking about pep talks, I'm amazed. It's been all CSGO so far. No one's talking about League. No one's talking about Krepo. What calls have we got lined up now?
We're leaving Krepo for the one after this one, I think. First, we're going to talk about ESports' need for health and mental health infrastructure by Cameron Nelson.
Cameron Nelson? Yes, I know this dude. He's messaged me a few times. He's been trying to get on the show for ages, as Cameron. So I'm happy to finally hear from him. I'm going to crack a beer open, one of my lovely Brewdog 5 a.m. red ale. It's called 5 a.m. because that's generally when you have your last one. Cameron, can you hear me?
It's good to hear from you again, Richard.
Yeah, good to hear from you too, brother. I know you've been trying to get on the show again for quite a while, and
this call's been about a month in the making.
It's been one of those ridiculous scheduling things. I never do the show on time. You've had shit come up, so I do apologise, but that's esports.
No, it's fine. It's mostly been just the fact that for the last month or so, in between just my depression, and for like the last 2 weeks, I've had like the mother of all flus. I just haven't been physically able to call in.
Right. Well, so you've already talked about what the call's going to be about. You know, it's mental health and esports. You've just said there you've been getting over a bout of depression yourself. I've suffered from quite bad depression in the past for quite a long period of time. You know, I've talked about that candidly. I definitely don't think there should be any stigma about mental health issues. So let's talk about it, because I agree with you. I think this is a real area of need within esports that isn't being catered to, that isn't being even looked at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard a single person even address the issue. And, you know, there have been, you know, some things like going on, like I know Glebe is dealing with his bipolar, but other than that, I don't know if anybody's really dealing with mental health issues. But here's the thing. These are, you know, late teens to early 20s living on their own for the first time, away from their family, in a very highly competitive environment, in a very not stable job. This is a powder keg for a multitude of mental health issues.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you know, when you are suffering from depression, I mean, I think it's important as well to kind of, you know, talk about depression, the condition, and how it can be exacerbated by things such as stress. And of course, they are very different conditions. When you're talking about clinical depression and, you know, having a bit of the blues and being stressed, these are all very different things. And this is why I think it's important that people are aware of the symptoms. You know, the same way here you are talking about how you've just had a flu. Well, we know what the symptoms of flu are, and when you've got one, you know how to medicate it. Well, when it comes to mental health issues, people don't really look at the symptoms, and they don't treat it as we would any other illness. I mean, this is one of the reasons why they go so long and they get worse and they degenerate, and it gets to the point where people physically, you know, can't deal with them without medication, without counseling, without a really big support network around them. So this
exactly.
one of the steps in the right direction, I think, just initially, would be in the same way. You know, okay, so I don't know if you went to university, but one of the things that we had, again, this is going back to the Stone Age, when I went to university, but meningitis was the thing, right? So everyone was like, watch out for meningitis. If you get a rash and you can roll a glass over it and it's still there, get to a hospital immediately. Time is a factor. You know, we had all these posters around. Now, I don't remember anything that was similar to that for mental health, where it was like, you know, are you feeling like you can't go out? Are you feeling you can't communicate with friends? Do things that once interested and excited you, do they feel really bland and tasteless and redundant? Do you take no joy in what you're doing? Do you have suicidal impulses? You know, there wasn't that poster, is what I'm saying. And I think the step in the right direction is there needs to be a group, or just even if it's a charity, that can come in and just produce some literature for people in esports to say, look, we know what you're going through is going to be you know, potentially stressful. You're going to be living away from home, possibly for the first time. You're going to be living a life in the spotlight for the first time. If you have any of these symptoms, then you should probably talk to a doctor about the possibility that you may have depression and speak to a professional about it.
Exactly. And it's just not only addressing it that concerns me, because addressing it is the first step of the problem. But in order to treat mental illness, there's very many steps to go through. I mean, I've been through treatment for close to 20 years now. So there's a lot we need to go through. We need to get them into treatment. And that is something that I think could... there's a lot of good things about getting into that and bad things about getting into that. It's sort of a double-edged sword. The good thing about it is a lot of these guys are in their late teens or early 20s. Now, at least I know in America, a lot of these guys are still covered by their parents' health insurance. So that is something that could be very easy for them. So getting possible coverage for that, but at the same time, mental health coverage, at least in America, is, at least particular to me, very concerning. Especially one of my areas of specialty is I'm going into social work. So mostly I'm dealing in mental health. I'm dealing in mental health in low-income areas, and that's one of the areas that needs it most.
Yeah, well, my girlfriend, obviously, she's a social worker as well. She does she specializes in child protection, so it's a slightly different field. But you know, I got to say, it's really interesting what you said right at the start, which is nobody's even talking about it. And I'll tell you a story. I wanted to. Right, okay. So people probably remember. I know maybe this is like coming up for 2 years ago now. It might only be a year ago. I mean, for some reason, he says while he's drinking a beer, it's all been a bit of a blur. But the thing was that I was kind of relapsing. I was having a real tough time. And again, I don't mind saying this. It wasn't oh, the trolls are getting to me. It was that I was having a relapse of an illness that I dealt with before. It's terrible actually, because you can recognize that it's happening, but the illness, it removes your ability to react to it in a sensible way. That's the first thing it does. It's like a virus on a computer that deletes your antivirus. That's what depression is. It enters your brain and it deletes your ability to cope and put coping strategies in place to deal with depression. So it exacerbates and it becomes a spiraling problem. This is one of the reasons why it is such a crippling illness.
And I fucking know.
Right, so I'm teaching my grandma how to suck eggs here. I'm sure you know all about it, but obviously for the benefit of the listeners that maybe haven't suffered with it. So I was realizing this, recognizing this, and I thought the only way I could channel it into something positive would be maybe while I'm here, while I'm down in the depths of the illness, I can write about it, and we can have a meaningful conversation about depression for the benefit of people within esports. Now, I know several of the high, profile esports celebrities that have suffered with the same illness, perhaps more than people would think. And I wanted to, I made a point of reaching out to them and saying, look, why don't we talk about this? Why don't we do? And everybody said the same thing, that they wanted to help, that they felt it was important, but they just felt like they would watch bags of money fly away, that no one would hire them. People would think they were mentally unstable and things like this. And as a result, that article never got wrote. That conversation never happened.
That is the most concerning thing. We need to help foster a culture of acceptance. And unfortunately, in a very highly corporate culture that is esports, I wish it wasn't, but it is, that a lot of the guys that have the money don't want to associate with mental illness. You get seen as a bit of a troublemaker. You see this in traditional sports too. There are guys run out of the league trying to advocate for mental health advocacy.
I mean, it's like you say. I mean, we've seen so many, and this is obviously a separate issue, but for example, with the NFL, with the issue about taking several blows to the head, and is this leading towards people committing violent crimes? We saw it in the WWE. They removed the full chair shots to the head after the Chris Benoit thing, when he obviously killed his family. People blamed it on roid rage, and when they dissected his body, dissected his brain, they saw he had
90-year-old Alzheimer patient.
Yeah, he had the same cellular makeup of a 90-year-old Alzheimer patient because of serious concussive disorder.
I saw that scan. It was a horror show.
Yeah, and this is what I mean. So people didn't want to have a conversation about it though, because it's bad for business, right? It's bad for business. WWE without chair shots, it's bad for business. The McMahons and the Federation tried to resist the pressure for as long as possible, despite scientific, evidence and scientific evidence, charities reaching out and saying we've got to change this, we've got to stop this. And it's been the same in the NFL, and we're finally getting towards a stage where people acknowledge maybe we need to compensate these people for taking non-stop fucking blows to the head year in, year out, because later on, they're gonna have some serious health problems. And it's like you say with depression, it's the same in mainstream sports. Nobody really wants to talk about mental health. We're getting there, but I mean, we're still at a stage where people don't want to talk about testicular cancer. It's insane. We had a Welsh footballer. Sam will tell you about this guy, John Hartson, right? Legend. Played for
met
Celtic.
him when I was 9.
Did
down
you?
the Avalido, mate. Got a picture and everything. Wait.
Before the Avalido burnt down.
Yeah.
But anyway, so John Hartson, okay, Welsh centre forward, big guy, burly, legend in Wales, legend up in Scotland when he played for Celtic. Everybody loves John Hartson. Now he got a lump on his testicle, right? Now for you or I'd be like, holy fucking shit, I gotta get to a doctor, it's a fucking lump. I'm pretty sure there's people out there that have got a lump on their testicle, and it's nothing. It's just ingrowing hair or something, but they're straight down to the doctor's like, 8 a.m, let me in, man. These are my balls. This is what I'm talking about. But because he was in sports, for whatever reason, do you know what he did? He ignored it. This is a professional sportsman. He ignored it, and the cancer spread to his brain. Right?
Yeah.
He ignored it for that long because he didn't want to be seen to be weak or whatever the fucking stigma was. It spread to his brain. So now he had to have full-blown chemotherapy for brain cancer. I mean, the guy beat it and still played professional football afterwards. This guy's a fucking beast. But I often joke about it. Like I say, how could you be that ridiculous? Because of the stigma, you let your health fucking degenerate to that level. But this is what I mean. It's and if that's something physical and something that we can all laugh about and say, why would you let cancer spread? Why would you do it? Well, depression, there isn't even a infrastructure to talk about it. You go to somebody in a professional sporting environment and say, oh, I'm feeling a bit depressed. I don't know why. You know, the public aren't sympathetic. They go, you earn millions. Fuck off with your depression. You earn millions. Well, you've got nothing to be miserable about. Sort your life out.
Yeah, there isn't a lot of sympathy for depression.
Yeah.
Just look at the aftermath of the Robin Williams thing. How could he be sad? He made millions of dollars. No one understands depression, and the whole Robin Williams thing's just made me so angry.
Yeah,
just like, how could you kill yourself for being depressed? You made millions of dollars. No one understands how depression works. It's not you're sad. There is an imbalance in your brain chemistry.
Yes.
You just physically cannot feel happy at times. And there's a point where depression, I almost think, could be labeled a terminal illness with the suicide rates it incurs.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say. I mean, I wouldn't say you were being overly dramatic labeling it that. For me, I mean, what's a terminal illness, right? We say a terminal illness is something that, in the majority of cases, would lead to you, to lead to you dying. I guess there is an argument there. I don't know if it's one I'd make, but certainly in a lot of cases, if depression, serious clinical depression is left untreated, those people will eventually elect to, kill themselves and.
Not only depression, but there are people dealing with bipolar, ADD, ADHD. Myself, I'm dealing with autism spectrum. There's hundreds of different disorders people could be dealing with, and nobody wants to talk about this. And it's just the same as dealing as with any part of your health, and no one wants to talk about it.
So let's rewind and get back to esports, okay, Cameron? What do we need in place, in your opinion? Because, I've talked about this a lot, and it's really hard because, first of all, depression is something that needs to be diagnosed and treated. I mean, we've talked about that. We've established that right here on this call. And I agree with you, and I know we're in agreement on that. It's not something you can leave in the hands of amateurs. It's got to be dealt with seriously and professionally. But that said, one of the best ways to kind of manage it and deal with it is knowing that you have a support network there, people that you can talk to, people you can offload onto, people that can monitor you and say, look, you're acting, you're acting as if you're depressed. Is there something I can do? Do you feel okay? How can I help? You need that around you. I don't think necessarily anyone really offers that kind of support in esports. So what do you think we need?
Well, step one, I think it needs to come down to the athlete themselves. We need to establish to them, if they feel that they have an illness they need to deal with, that it is okay for them to talk about it and that the team can help them. Then you move up to the team to where you need to create an environment to where it is supportive for that. And that is something that I feel that TSM probably really dropped the ball with Glebe. Reggie's done a lot of good for esports, but I think in this one he particularly dropped the ball. And I don't blame Reginald for that. It's something that no one in esports, I think, has properly dealt with before. So I don't think we can blame him for that. But you need to be able to say, it's okay, and we'll try and help you. But then once you create that environment within the team, then you need to bring within your support structure professional help. That is where I think the end goal is for this. You need to actually get them into therapy, get them some medication, just make sure that you can support them. And then that's probably the tricky part, because a lot of guys in the LCS or guys on CSGO teams or whatever, they're not technically legal employees of the teams. From what I can tell, most of them are contract labor. And that's where I get into a lot of legal disputes, and this is where I can get really muddy.
I want to ask you as well, you know, and look, this isn't I just want to say right at the start, because I have a reputation for it, this isn't a Riot bashing thing at all. But I think Riot are in a great position to really help their athletes. I genuinely believe this. I don't think they do enough, but this isn't to bash them.
It's just something I don't think they've considered.
Yeah, exactly. I don't, you know, not even, as we've established, not even mainstream sports are doing this. But how would you feel
mainstream
about
sports on some parts? Like, I can tell, like, I have a friend who actually is an NFL scout. They will actively label it as a character flaw, which disgusts me.
Well, how would you feel about this? Let's just say, I don't know, once a split, you know, there was some sort of maybe like a screening, or, you know, an opportunity to go and speak to a mental health professional if you felt it was required. The option was made available by Riot, you know, and Riot footed the bill, and it was all paid for. And you know, if your manager knows or a coach knows that you've been displaying some of the symptoms, if they've got the awareness, perhaps they could direct you to it in a sensitive and, you know, quite private fashion. You know, I think there's lots of things that don't get talked about. I mean, the UK League of Legends scene had a suicide attempt as well, and it never got reported on. I think to respect the privacy of the individual, and I totally understand that.
It's understandable. I think the only publicized suicide attempt in League was Promise, and that was not mental health.
Yeah, it wasn't a mental health issue.
That was the most fucked up thing I've ever heard in League of Legends.
Yeah, that was crazy. But, you know, I think why, you know, perhaps. Would you agree? I mean, is that appropriate in your opinion if Riot were to offer that, or if somebody was to come in and work with Riot and offer that? Because these young adults, and that's what we need to remember we're dealing with here. These aren't even adults. You know, I'm an adult. I mean, I act like a lot of the time, but I am an adult. You know, I'm in my 30s. I've lived a life. I've gone through some shit. I've got some stories, good and bad. Okay, and I feel equipped for the most part to deal with anything that gets thrown my way. I think that saying that about a 17 or 18-year-old or even a 20-year-old, I don't think you can say that about them, and that's not to be detrimental to them. That's, I think, just the reality based on my personal experiences. So do you think it would be appropriate if there was like an option there for like a screening, or even just you could come in and talk to a mental health professional once a split, and if they felt it needed further attention, they could direct you accordingly?
You know, it's funny you ask that, because a lot of times when you bash Riot, I almost want to slap you and feel like that is what you're saying is completely unnecessary. But this time I'm not only going to one-up you, not saying that Riot should do that. I feel like it's almost their responsibility. Because at this point, they're the one that are creating the environment. They're the one who are basically dictating the league. They're the one who are dictating a lot of what a player can do. If they're going to have this much control over their life, they're going to exert that much over a player. The least they could do is make sure that these players are being taken care of.
Yeah, I agree with it completely. I'm glad you feel the same way. So look, I definitely don't want to wrap up the call quickly, especially after it's been a month in the making. But we're getting, you know, towards the latter quarter of the show. I'd like to get a few more calls, and I think we may even have some people calling in as a reaction to this. So I think you can feel rightly proud that you've generated some discussion. But you know, just some final thoughts about what the esports industry can do as a whole. Because I think we both agree that the problem can only be resolved first and foremost by awareness, right?
Exactly. It was like just awareness. We just need to let them know that if you want to talk, it's okay. And I know this sounds like a bit of a platitude, but it's not, because so many people don't talk about it. And that is what really alarms me, especially in players in as high stress a situation as this. They're probably the ones that need it the most. And this is a culture, you could argue about gaming, whatever, you know, it's like not very accepting. It's just, in general, I'd almost argue anywhere in the world, mental health is seen almost as it's just some sort of defect, and it's just something we don't want to deal with. But I feel like if we want to improve this, if we want to improve esports as a culture, this is one thing that we should strive to do better than everyone else.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that beautifully encapsulates my sentiment as well. So look, Cameron, thanks a lot for calling in. I'm sorry that you've been a bit under the weather lately. You've not been feeling too great. It sounds to me like you're on the road to recovery. I'm super happy for you. You know how to find me. Ever you want to talk, any time, brother. You know, I'll be there for you 24/7. All right.
No problem. And hopefully when I call back in a few years, I can be like Bryce and say I can offer a professional opinion on the subject. Right now, I'm only going back to school.
Well, I hope so too, brother. I wish you every success. Thanks a lot for calling in, yeah?
All right. No problem,
No,
Richard.
Take care, Cameron. Peace out. So there we go. A real serious topical conversation here. Not something I'm going to cheapen by making any jokes about it. I do think that esports has been long overdue a serious conversation about mental health and how we address it and the stigma that's attached to it, because one of the great things about esports is as a growing and developing industry, we're resetting the rules. We're making a new environment. We don't need to bring all the baggage and the bullshit from other areas. We can really do something special here. So I sincerely hope that we can take a step in the right direction. Now, Sam, I can hear you making mouth noises, so you've got something to say.
We're just gonna say Anders wants to come in and just chime in on that same topic as well. So
brilliant! I'm awesome. Definitely always got time for my big, lovely teddy bear Anders. For the League of Legends fans out there that maybe don't know who he is, which is appalling. Frankly,
hello.
You should know who he is. Yeah, here he is. This is Anders Blume. I would say the leading CSGO commentator. He's been on the show before, but just in case you don't know who he is, that's the introduction. And I got a lot of love for this guy. We've worked together on numerous occasions. I've known him since he came in the scene. And you want to talk about depression, my friend?
Hello?
If you're still there. Hi, can you hear me, Anders? I don't think he can hear me, Sam. Can you make this work?
What am I, master of the internet?
Yeah,
Make it work.
Perhaps kick him and reattach him to the call, or ask him to not have his ears muted or whatever.
Fix ears.
Can you hear me yet, Anders?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello? This is like having a call with my grandmother. Are you there still? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello?
Is this a troll?
No, this isn't a troll. This is really Anders.
All right, let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see if I can figure this out on my end. There we go.
There we go.
Oh, hello, Anders. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you just fine.
Yes. So here we go. Here we are. It was getting into awkward territory, but we've just saved it. We pulled it back from the brink. So it's good actually that you didn't hear me. I gave you a lovely glowing review and talking about how you're one of the premier Counter-Strike casters, certainly not one of the premier technological minds, it seems, if you're struggling with Skype. But it's great to get you on the show, and I know this is a topic that's close to your heart. We've talked about it in the past, depression and its position within esports.
Yeah, we did. I think it's actually like this one of the first conversations we had, I think, just about how little it's talked about. So thanks for bringing it up, and thanks to the last caller as well for putting that on the table, because I think that's really important, and certainly talking about it is one of the really important things. So actually, I just called because I thought maybe I could share part of my story a little bit, even though it's like somewhat reversed because of. Yeah, I mean, your angle on it was what happens if you're a professional player and you end up having some sort of depression, and you get help from a team. For me, it was actually rather the opposite. I was somewhat deep into a depressed state, and then the whole esports angle sort of helped me out with it. I ended up like having a better life and being happier for being involved with all this. But up until that point, I had done appallingly little to try and help myself out of that situation, and I'm happy to talk about it now, but even looking back now, I can shake my head at myself and think, why didn't I do anything? And I guess it comes back to what you were saying, that one of the first symptoms is like an inability to do the things you need to really change it, which is really awful. So definitely more talk on the topic, I think, is really important. And I would say even outside of esports, and I guess this is a problem probably many people can relate to, it's actually not as easy getting help as it sounds. I went all the way to sort of the limits of where I actually went to my local physician and said, I actually have a problem and I don't know if I can deal with it on my own. Like, I can't seem to get out of this. Because I would say for the first couple of months, turning into half a year, then a year, I kept telling myself this period is going to pass. It's just a phase I'm going through, and I'll be better soon. And then after a couple of years went by, I started realizing this isn't working out. This isn't somehow getting better on its own. So I definitely realized that, you know, I need some help. And I went down there. And I don't know if anyone else can recognize this, but whenever I go to the doctor, I always go in like halfway apologizing for even being there. Like, you know, I have a sore throat, but it'll probably pass. I'll drink some more tea or whatever. And I went in with the same mentality as that. I said, I'm not feeling very well, but I could probably do more exercise, and you know, I should probably eat better. And I know it's really kind of halfway my own fault, but you know, I do need some help.
What were the symptoms? I mean, again, if you don't mind me asking, what was it? When did you start to think that you weren't well, and why? Well, you know, how did it manifest itself? What did you notice about yourself?
So, in a way, I went about it in a somewhat logical way. I tried to sum up how many days in a month I felt really good about, like a whole day, basically. And I realized that weren't that many days where I had like whole days that really felt good, where I felt like, you know, I have a good reason to get out of bed and I'm looking forward to you know, the rest of the day. And I think that's about when I really realized that something was up. But the symptoms, as it were, they're really hard to define, aren't they? I mean, it starts out as like a general feeling of sadness, and like, I guess the cliche is everything feels a little bit gray. It's hard to find a meaning in anything. And also the one of the other things is a complete, like, really trying to avoid other people is something I felt as well, which I guess is very common. Just trying to avoid social interaction, which is bad. And I think actually maybe a reason why it's worth talking about in esports even more is because for a lot of people who are into computer gaming in general, the world is a place, like the esports world or the gaming world is a place you can get a little bit away from the normal world, which I think is one of the big strengths as well. I think it's one of the really cool things about it. But it can obviously also mean that if you're already on the slightly awkward social side, then you could get hit even harder once that rolls around.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. Look, so when I was going through my own depression, it was really strange because it was like what made me. I kept telling myself what makes me bad will eventually make me better. It was like being locked into a cycle of really destructive behavior and kind of thinking, you know, it was like believing that if I keep doing it, eventually it'll click, it'll work, and I'll be cured miraculously. And so what was happening with me was I was really overcommitting to esports. I'd made a lot of bad life choices and put esports at the forefront of it. One of the reasons why I personally now still get so defensive when people say, you know, you're a loser, you know, you're only an esports journalist, whatever it is people say. You know, I fucking chose to be here, and I made a fucking bunch of bad choices to be here, and that's why it fucking hurt. That's why it actually does hurt my feelings so much, you know, because it taps into that personal thing. So. What I was doing was, you know, like you say, it was the seduction. You know, I was shunning social interaction. I was drifting apart from friends. And here was this seductive new world that I was telling myself, you know, this was like a chance to effectively reconstruct and to come in and to succeed. And it was something I was passionate about, you know. I've always loved gaming. And so it was like, yeah, this is what's going to make me feel better, succeeding in this area. And of course, there were so many pitfalls and problems along the way that it was like, you know, some guy's telling you to kill yourself. Well, I already feel like I want to kill myself. And I'm hearing this, you know, 24/7. And then it would be other things, you know, colleagues that you thought were friendly and that you could trust would, you know, betray you to sort of one-up you in the industry. And it was very cutthroat back in the day. It's not quite like that anymore. And every time I got bit by something like that, rather than say, well, you know what, I should realign my priorities and maybe I should pick up the phone and call that friend from back in the day, the one that I really, you know, care about, and we had a great rapport, or even, you know, maybe I should go and you know, try and reconnect with that girl. We had a thing, and then because of esports, it didn't work out because I was away every weekend, and maybe now I should take some me time and try and reconnect to the real world. All I did was I went deeper. It was like Inception. I just kept going deeper and deeper into esports, and it didn't help me, actually. Looking back, it it has a happy ending, I guess, because of where I am now. But for a long period of time, it wasn't a good story. It was quite dark in some places, and like I say, really self-destructive.
Right. So, I mean, for me, I think maybe part of the reason why I didn't react to it sooner was I felt I had actually caused this, like I had inflicted myself with this problem in my mind, and I wanted to find my own way out of it. As a result, I wanted to say, okay, I've done this to myself. I can get myself out of it again. And the way I had done it was kind of elaborate. I think I've mentioned in interviews before, sort of just passing by, but essentially, I took up a number of different university courses. Now, for any American viewers, in Denmark, you can basically jump from universities, different like levels of university. You can just go to different courses. And because they pay you to go to university, there's no like cost to doing. You're not going to build up like a huge debt doing it. So I started off with physics, and then I did biology, and then I jumped to English. So I had 3 different degrees that I started, individually. And every time I stopped a degree, I would obviously feel much worse. Like, even if it's free, you're not going to enjoy having to let go, and everyone else is going to move on with the course, but you'll feel like I was the guy who couldn't make it. I wasn't smart enough, or I wasn't dedicated enough, or like I had all these things, but I never really dealt with them. I just sort of said, like, when I quit physics the first time, I just said to myself, fine, I will, biology is more fun anyway, I'll do that, right? So instead of dealing with it, I made an excuse in my own mind and said, fine, I'll just I'm more interested in biology anyway, so that's cool. And then I thought, okay, biology wasn't actually that much fun, but English I'm pretty good at, so I'll do that instead, and it's a better fit for me anyway, I'll do that. So I never really tried to deal with the issue of actually, because it is a big thing when you have to quit, a whole, your education and then try and do something else. And I was just very bad at doing that, basically. And then all throughout, I realized that it wasn't fun doing it. I took 2.5 years or something, maybe a little bit less on English. So I had like half a year or something left when I quit to do esports instead, which is a bit of a silly choice, really. But that's how it went down. But every time there was a break between 2 semesters, I would get into this mode where I would start thinking, I want to do something else. What if I want to write a book? I can't even count the number of times I've tried to start writing a book. What if I learn how to play the piano? What if I do different things, right? I just wanted to get out and do something else. And I kept having these feelings as well. What if I win the lottery? Won't that what if just something to break my break the monotony of like everyday life and going to university? And I couldn't deal with it. I was very bad at dealing with it. I didn't realize at the time that was actually probably a really, really heavy symptom that there was something wrong. That I couldn't be happy with the way I was, and I didn't know how to change it. And because of this, I think once I realized that I'm actually really unhappy with what I'm doing, I felt like it was my own fault in a way, because I'd sort of put myself here by quitting all these other degrees and not really doing anything I liked with my life, and I think that somehow made it worse. In fact, sadly.
So here's the thing: why, and I know this is it's too difficult a question to answer. We could be here all night about it, but probably. As well as I do the number of people that have suffered from depression in this industry, and I'm talking about not even just the people that have reached out to us today, the people that are tweeting at us, people like Cameron who are calling in and wanting to talk about it. And as I said, this is a conversation that's been long overdue, and I don't even know if this will lead us in the right direction. It might take a bigger flashpoint. But why is it then that when so many of us have gone through this common experience, this common shared experience, why is it that so many people don't use their positions? And I'm guilty of this, I guess, as much as anybody. Why is it we don't use our positions to address this issue and try and get something done about it? Why are we scared of the stigma?
Right. Well, I've actually reached a point quite a long time ago where I'm not scared of it at all. I can't imagine a single event or a single organizer or anything that would second guess hiring me because I had a past with depression. And I came to this conclusion because I realized right in the beginning, especially right when I felt like this esports thing was working out and I could feel that I was getting a lot happier, and I actually really enjoyed working with all this casting stuff, and I felt my life sort of turning around. Once I reached that point, I realized very early on, in the beginning, I thought, well, I'm special and I have this like special unique story about having a depression and I've like overcome it, and I sort of felt even like doubly cool for doing that. So I was like, yeah, go Anders, that's really good job doing that. Then as I started talking to more and more people about it, I realized it's so incredibly common. That didn't make me feel sad, but it made me realize that it pretty gave me like less of an incentive to talk to other people about it, because so many people have tried this. And also that's also the reason why I think it's very unlikely that you'll ever not get hired somewhere, because chances are either the people hiring you or someone they know will have been through something very similar. It's like winning the lottery if you find a person who hasn't somehow had depression like close to their life, either on themselves or someone they know. Yeah. It feels very uncommon. So I'm not really worried about that. And but ultimately, I guess from my point of view, I think because I'm guilty of it as well. I probably should talk more about it, but I do feel a little bit like, well, who's going to want to listen as well? It is like such a heavy topic, isn't it? It's hard.
I agree, but more people than you would know, dude. I mean, this is like, I fucking hate it when I do this, but like in the interests of honesty, and this isn't isn't a Richard Lewis such a great guy thing. I mean, I've done it on several occasions. There's people out there, and for whatever reason, I don't get it, Anders. I don't get it. I go to events with you, and I see people coming up to you, and they want you to sign things, and they want photos with you, and you see my reaction when people want to do it with me. I don't get it. I'm like, are you sure? I almost try and talk them out of it. And that's just the small stuff. I've had people message me and be like, I listen to your shows all the time. I read your articles. I'm depressed and I don't know who else to talk to. And I get overwhelmed by this like sense of responsibility. Like they're picking me they've got all these people in their lives that they could talk to, and they're choosing me. Yes. Right. So I need to fucking listen now. I won't do anything more important with my life in esports than this. That's how I look at it, Writing an article about, player X joins team Y, like, give a fuck. It's meaningless, like doing a show like this. I mean, apart from this topic, it's a bit of light entertainment. It's meaningless. When somebody reaches out to you like that, you're not going to do anything more important with your career, arguably your life, than help another human being that has chosen you specifically for that help. And I always make a point, and it's happened on multiple occasions. I always make a point of being accessible. Whatever I'm doing has to stop, and that individual needs to be heard because of the importance of what they're asking you to do, and you specifically. Now, that doesn't mean I've got all the answers. That doesn't mean I tell, if you do this, you'll be okay. Eat more lemons or whatever, I try and direct them to the professional care they need. But fuck, man, you got to listen to people. You got to try and help where you can. And this is why I think more people than you realize would really, give a shit, man. Like, seriously, because no one has this conversation. And there's so many people out there that actually, for good or ill, they look up to us, man. Like, well, we can help them.
I think you're touching on an important point as well, which is, suppose you do get an email in your inbox from someone saying, well, I identify with what you were talking about, and I've gone through something similar. Do you have any tricks? Do you have any tips to try and get out of it? Right? That's a really, that's a gray zone, isn't it? Because then you're effectively trying to portray yourself as like a psychiatrist, almost trying to help people, which is obviously not what any of us is trying to do, because we're just suggesting really that if you talk about it, maybe the whole act of talking about it will at least make the topic a little bit illuminated, so that people will feel less embarrassed about talking to other people, and maybe even less embarrassed about getting help and all that stuff, which is really important. But I do sometimes feel like, especially when if you've been in that state of mind, you can sometimes even almost look at other people and see it in them, and see, that guy looks like he's got like too much on his heart right now, and then you kind of do want to help them, but you're not sure where. And it's also, I think the first mistake you'll make in that context is trying to apply your own case onto everyone else's and say, well, this worked for me, so it'll probably work for you as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, that's a real good observation, dude, because, you know, I went through the longest time, even when I was suffering depression, like, you know, kind of openly rejecting help. Like people would be like, Rich, you know, I think you're depressed, man. You know, people did try and reach out to me, and I always said the same thing. I had it drilled in my head, a mantra. I said, depression. If your life is shit, this is what I used to say, no joke. If your life is shit, depression is a perfectly normal reaction, and I would just shrug off any attempt to help. Like no matter how I was feeling, it was like, this is my burden. I'll go through this alone. I don't need you. And of course I needed someone to come in and give me an outside sense of perspective. That's the nature of the illness. It warps your reality. It warps your view.
Yeah.
What you're seeing and feeling isn't real anymore, you know?
So, I mean, it's a little bit like your analogy with the virus. My way of trying to explain it to people who haven't tried it, it's a little bit like the same, only, like, imagine if you had pneumonia, which in itself can be very bad if you don't treat it, but if you treat it, it's universally curable unless you have like very specific sort of pre-existing conditions, right? If you're already fragile in some way. But pneumonia, sure, you go to the doctor and they prescribe you some penicillin and you're good to go again. Unless, imagine if pneumonia had one of the side effects that you specifically wanted to avoid doctors, or that you were like deathly afraid of penicillin. If that was one of the side effects, then all of a sudden pneumonia would be catastrophic, right? It would mean you'd have to go and look for people in their homes and make sure they didn't have pneumonia, because they'd never come to you to figure out if they had it or not. It'd be horrible. And that's pretty close to what it feels like. And as you said yourself, you know that this is happening. It's not that you don't know it's happening, but you can't necessarily stop it, or the urge to stop it is just not there. Like, it's not that at least in my case, it wasn't that I was directly like lying in my bed at morning and thinking I don't deserve to like get better, or I don't deserve to like, you know, live a better life than this. But there was some sort of drive that was missing for me to want to take any steps towards making that better at all. It felt more comfortable, or it felt more manageable to just not worry about it, to just not, you know, deal with it. And that's and that can go on for a very long time. And I think one of the reasons also why I sometimes hesitate to try and talk too broadly about it is also because I had a definite sense that while I felt really bad during my depression, I had a sense that there were much deeper levels that you could sink to. Like, if you know what I'm talking about, I had a feeling that below me the sort of the dark water was quite deep. And so I always worry about, what if I run into someone who has been through a much worse experience, and then it comes off as me sort of, you know, sounding like, you know, I went through like the worst thing in the world. Whereas in fact, probably a lot of people have been through much worse, and also a lot of people have been through even the level that I was through and have come out on top just like it. So I do sort of worry about that, trying to make
I almost think that's an extension of the condition in a way, to be honest with you. I think the presumed... You presume people will lack empathy to your particular plight. It's almost as if it pushes a button in your head, which it makes you ashamed of the condition, makes you ashamed of the weakness. So the natural reaction is, well, if I talk to somebody like this, well, what if they've had it worse and they're not suffering in the same way I am? And this is the thing: we equate experiences as triggers. So we say, well, look at him over there, man. You know, this guy's got no legs. He lost them in Iraq. He's become a Paralympian, gold medalist. He never let anything get him down. He's never suffered depression. He's not crying about it. How do I go up to that guy over there and talk about it? You know, my experience is pale in comparison to him. I need to pull myself together is what I need to do. But in actual fact, it's not. Like you say, depression's an illness. Clinical depression is an illness. It's not a case of you talk to that guy over there and you go, well, let's compare who's had it worse. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. It's an illness. It's completely, in a lot of cases, it's completely removed from experience. You know, and this is why, you know, so many people who we look at, we don't understand why they're suffering from depression, because we think about it completely incorrectly. So yeah, but I almost think that's another symptom right there. You know, I can totally identify with that, and that's what I was doing when I was, you know, pushing people away. I'm not going to talk about this. I don't need to talk about this. This is just something I've got to get through on my own. And I didn't want to be shameful. I didn't want to appear weak. And that, you know, that's the disease. That's the illness talking to you.
Yeah, what's really weird is actually, from my point of view, I was even while it was going on, I never feared the feeling weak part. I think I realized very early on that was nonsense. The whole idea that that it only happens to people who are mentally weak or fragile or something. I kind of in my mind rejected that very early on and said, fine, that's definitely not how it works. But actually, and this is only something I realized going back, because I tried to like retrace it, and I told you the story about going to university and ditching different courses. But the fact is, actually, long before then, I had I've tried to trace this back as far as I could, and I remember the first time I had this thought occur to me was somewhere in the eighth or seventh grade. I had a definite feeling that everybody else in my particular class were somehow better than me at almost everything else. Like better at maths, better at everything. And I felt like there's no way I'm going to catch up. They'll always be like a little bit like, even if I study just as hard as them now, they will have studied just as hard, just for longer, right? So they'll always be better. And somehow that mentality stuck with me for an unreasonable amount of time. The feeling of like always being a little like the future's always a little bit behind you, which is a really uncomfortable feeling, really. And even now, just when I started esports, I have had to sort of remind myself a couple of times along the way, because I'm 29 now. You know, I keep thinking, what if I had done this? What if I had got into casting when I was 23 or 24? You know, I would have had years of experience. I would have had, like, you know, all the stuff I could have done, right? So I have tried to sort of actively, and again, not to dish out like too much advice, because again, every person has like a different mentality towards this. But I've had to try and change my thinking a lot and said, well, look, it doesn't really matter how much you could have accomplished, because the fact is now, you know, now you're kind of here now and doing what you're doing, and it's good and it's enjoyable. But yeah, that took me a while to figure out. Like I said, like almost 29 years to figure out, basically.
Yeah, well, that's how it is sometimes, though, dude. But you know, I mean, look, just to get back on topic,
Yes.
and listen, I know this has been. I certainly didn't plan to go in this direction tonight, but I'm certainly glad we did. I don't mind. You know, people in the Twitch chat, you know, poking a little bit of fun. I'm glad they're here to hear this. I don't think anyone's that malicious or malevolent, and I'm sure even the people that are kind of making some jokes, which, you know, fuck, I got a pretty dark sense of humor. I don't give a fuck. You know, I'll make those jokes myself.
Absolutely.
So, you know, but I know they're listening. And that's a good thing, right? Everyone's going to have a different sort of opinion about stuff, and this is by no means the definitive version. As people rightly say, this is a fucking esports talk show. We can only do so much, but I definitely think having a conversation about our industry and how it affects people directly is important. It's something I feel passionately about, and I'm glad more people like yourself are willing to do it. So, on point.
Yes.
Let's talk about how can we improve the infrastructure for dealing with mental health issues within esports? You know, you're a guy, you go out there, you work a fuck ton of events every year. You know, what do you see out there that isn't there, that could be there?
So I've actually been to I'll just say a gaming house once, where some players were living and playing, which was I remember thinking at the time, if I was 14 or 15, this would have been the greatest thing ever. The idea of sitting around with a bunch of friends, playing computer games all day, and having that be your job, right? But when I was there, and I was there in you know, on different business, I realized this is actually very, very weird. It's like a house where time stands still, and there is no way for people to have any kind of personal progress, really. I mean, they can progress in the game, which is obviously what they're there for and what they're getting paid for. But there is no structure to allow them to do anything else. And and my next thought immediately was feeling really old, because I started thinking about stuff like, these kids should go for a walk, or they should have like other hobbies. They should get out more, you know, which are like all the things that my parents were telling me when I was 14 and sitting in a, you know, room playing computer games 10 hours a day. But I did realize all of a sudden that there was no structure to allow them to do anything like that. But obviously, if you're a team and you hire someone to play, how long do you expect them to play well for your team? I mean, let's say we're talking about Dota 2 or League of Legends. Do you hire them and expect them to be at the top of the game for the next year or two, or do you really just want them to play well until the international rolls around, and that's enough? We'll probably find new players after the international or the next big event anyway. So if you're not really committed to investing into them for a very long time, why would you really care about their personal progress over a short period of time? Unless you're then, and I think this is these are also the organizations that I appreciate the most, are the ones that also recognize, well, actually, even if people, go from being the second or third best player in the world to being now just quotation marks, just top 15 or something, they can still be very much worth something as a brand, because if they've got lots of fans and people who appreciate them and all that stuff, therefore it's still worth it to have them around, even if they're no longer your top player. So I think maybe that's a different mindset that some organizations do have, where they do want to work with people for a very long time. I think EG is an organization I would mention in that context. Like, they put a lot into promoting their people as personalities as well, which means they're worth a lot to EG even after a long time, right? They're still going to be worth something even if they're not the best player anymore. But if you're going to discard people after a very short time, maybe you don't want to, hire a life coach or whatever it is, like people to help them with all that stuff. Because even, I guess, depression is on the heavy scale of problems you could have, but you could have lots of other problems. Just, if you're 17 and your only skill, or your the majority of all your time goes into playing one computer game that you're really good at, you don't have to be inhuman to not at some point think, what about the rest of my life? What am I doing? What, is this normal? Am I going to be all right? Can this work? All these questions need answering. And yeah, I think that is the responsibility of teams in some way to address that issue. Because otherwise it's a little bit too much like just picking up people while they're hot and then discarding them when they're not.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. And, we talked a little about it from a League of Legends perspective, but, I'd like to see organizations be a little bit more aware. I've known players that have hit some pretty bad slumps, and again, I'm not a professional, I couldn't diagnose anything, but I would certainly say they would have benefited from talking to someone about where they were in any given point. Nobody is equipped to deal with a life in the spotlight of an internet-based community, I don't think. I know I wasn't, and still aren't, really, if I'm honest with you. I still struggle with it. Even now, as when I feel healthy mentally and physically, I still struggle watching a Twitch chat when I'm trying to broadcast. I still can't break down the mental barrier of realizing, these people are saying stuff. It's a joke. It's not necessarily serious, but it can be really difficult for a lot of people. Total Biscuit talked about it as well. John was very open about how he needed to get therapy, and he did. He went and got therapy. Somebody as big as him, as influential as him, was suffering from a mental health issue, and he needed to get it treated. So it can happen to anybody. I mean, again, it's a bit of a glib point, it's a bit of a trite point, but I think it's one worth echoing, that it's not, success isn't necessarily an insulator against depression. Money, isn't, it can happen to anybody in any situation whatsoever. So, but look, I definitely don't want to keep you all night. And I just want to say, I think it's great that you came on the show to talk about this. I think, when people look at how you've succeeded and how you've managed to get beyond your own experiences with depression, I think that's, an inspiring story, again, without wanting to sound glib or trite about it. You've gone on to achieve great things in the esports industry as a relative novice compared to old stalwarts like me. You've managed to ascend to the pinnacle of what you do. And I'm sure that when people listen to this on the VOD, or if anybody's heard your story kind of independently of this or on Twitter or whatever, I'm sure a lot of people will be inspired and they'll think, if Anders can do it, maybe I can too.
Yeah, or my hope is at least that people will maybe listen in and think, even if they can just recognize a few bits and pieces of what it's like, I think that can still be valuable in some ways. So that's my one hope, definitely. And yeah, I do wish I had like a parting, piece of good advice or whatever. But I think if you listen to the conversation from beginning to end, hopefully you will. Hopefully you'll pick up a couple of things and work it out. The world is different once you're on the other side of it, definitely. But it doesn't seem like that, and that's obviously the horror of it. But yeah, thank you for having me, Richard, and thanks for bringing it up.
Always a pleasure, and again, I can't wait to do another event with you, which I'm pretty confident, based on how my schedule's looking already, will be very soon indeed. So, we'll talk over some beers about this some more, I think.
Absolutely. I'll see you next time, Richard, and take care.
All the best, brother. Take care.
All the best.
So there we go. That's Anders again calling in, talking about his experiences. He is certainly somebody that I've got a lot of respect for. Somebody that, as I said, he's climbed to the top of his profession, the pinnacle of what he does. And we've had numerous conversations about depression before. I know there's a few people who are like, "What the fuck? This is trash talk. What are we talking about?" You know how it is, guys. This is we do have the odd serious topic of conversation. I think it says everything about this show that we were making jokes about an Australian paedophile at the start, and now we're having a serious, meaningful discussion about how mental health is perceived.
That's what makes this show good.
Well, I would say that, but I have to say that because I'm hoping to get a sponsorship for the show. But look, so on a serious note, just finally, just to put this to bed, you know, I understand the objections to some people that are saying this isn't an appropriate platform to talk about it. I get that. I would disagree. I don't think there's any such thing as an inappropriate platform to talk about these things, and certainly in the absence of any others, this will have to do. I'm by no means the authority. I would never claim to be, but I based on the comments I'm getting, on the tweets I'm getting, on the messages I'm getting, I think it's benefited some people. I hope it can spur on more conversation of this nature. And I just want to say as well, to anybody that is feeling depressed or is feeling a little bit out of their depth, if you go to the Suicide Watch subreddit, they have got a series of hotlines that are all dealt to dealing with people who are feeling depressed or feeling suicidal. It's a sticky thread right at the top. And again, it's got one for every country. It's got several for some of the, you know, for some countries in there. And if you ever feel that you need to talk about it with someone, by all means, if you don't feel like you can reach out to friends and family, again, because of that fear about the stigma, there's options. You can talk to people. These are run by charities. A lot of the time, it's run by trained volunteers. But if you ever need to talk to somebody about it and get an outsider perspective, which I strongly advise that you do, talking is the first step ultimately towards getting it dealt with and getting recovery. I would urge you to, you know, call one of the numbers on that board, and certainly, you know, if even one of you take that away and it helps, then fuck it, I think we've spent a pretty good hour. That's worth it for me. Like I said, I don't think I'll get to do anything more important with my life than this sort of stuff. So there we are. And with that said, we'll move on. Now, Sam, I while I think that's an important message, and we should perhaps end on it, I also sort of don't want it to be, oh, the show's ended and we spent an hour talking about something which is important, because obviously there'll be some people who are like, well, I tuned in for some esports content. So I think we have a responsibility for those people to do one more call. I know we had someone who wanted to talk about Krepo on the on the short list. Is that individual still available?
This one isn't, but I have someone else who wants to talk about it. So John wants to talk about Krepo to Elements.
Okay, well, let's do that then. Absolutely great way to finish off the show. So, John, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hey there, John. How you doing, brother? You okay?
Doing good today. How are you doing?
Not too bad, man. It's been a good show. A couple hours have flown by. Lots to talk about. But you know, these are the kind of shows that I love doing. A bit eclectic, a bit all over the place. So yeah, having a good time. Let's talk about Krepo Elements. I'm glad you brought this up. Because it seemed that we weren't going to talk about it. I think this is a hugely important thing. You know, I made a joke at the start of the show talking about how Krepo was playing and Nif was forced to watch, which is just so weird to me. But ultimately, I think a lot of the community certainly, and I know the community's always biased because everyone loves Krepo and it gives people a warped perspective about things. But certainly, if he plays the way that he was playing towards the end of last split, this could be a very good move for Elements, couldn't it?
I definitely think so. And I mean, a lot of people definitely want to go back to looking at the Counter Logic EU days. But I think people really need to look outside the box and kind of take that out of account completely. Because essentially what happened when CLG EU disbanded was, and Krepo has said this numerous times in interviews, it was their team that Froggen and Wicked had together. Froggen actually tried out Wicked and decided that he was the best fit out of all the top laners he tried out. It wasn't just, oh, we're friends, we're going to make these teams together. It was, we thought this was the best chance for us as a team to be successful. And I feel like when a lot of people are going to look at this, it's going to be, oh, the old CLG squad's coming back together. They're kind of removing Wicked, but whatever. We have Krepo now. It really has nothing to do with that. Krepo is the best support, I believe, at the time that Elements could pick up to fix things. If you actually watch, and I guess solo queue isn't the best thing to go off of, if you watch Krepo's solo queue games, he has very, very, very good early game map pressure. He roams, and roaming as a support is very, very, very important in this meta, especially. So if you actually watch his solo queue games, and I'm kind of a fanboy in the sense by calling him this, but I would definitely call him the European Afromu because of the fact that he has such good early game pressure. His skill shots are impeccable. He's really, really good at the meta supports like Blitzcrank, Morgana, anything you want to play to catch people out now these days. And I feel like he by far is the thing that Elements needs right now to actually fix the problems that they've had, because so far they've just been playing passive. They've been just getting destroyed early game. And Krepo is the key that they need, I feel, and that's why I feel this is such an important move, because he is the key that can help fix their early game. I'm not sure if their new top laner will be able to live up to the hype that I don't think he really has that much expectations, but the hype that Krepo is bringing to the team.
Look, I'll say this. So when Krepo went through that phase where he wasn't playing too well and that EG team was kind of falling down around itself, it was crumbling down, and their bot lane was an issue back in the Yellow Pete days. I kind of was like, maybe Krepo should retire. Riot will snap him up in a heartbeat. He's tailor-made for what they want. Yep. He's a smart analyst, and he expresses himself fairly eloquently, which is a point that Thorin made recently in his tweets, that people sometimes overestimate his knowledge based on the way that he delivers it. But he's great in terms of a broadcasting presence, and even though Mitch doesn't like me particularly well a lot, that's fine. Fuck it, that's fine. That's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily have any ill will towards him, and I'm sure he'll be very successful. So surprised by this turn of events to see him playing again. But here's the thing: he, as soon as Altec, sorry, I should say, came into their fucking team, it was like the AD carry rejuvenated him. Like, just having somebody better to play with and exuberant and raw talent, it seemed to bring the best out of Krepo. And all of a sudden, I would say, when EG went on that ridiculous run at the end of the split, where they won like 6 games in a row or something insane like that, and they had a 4-0 super week, they were just incredible. And Krepo was at the heart of that. There's no doubt about it. He really stepped up his game, and it was just great to see. So I've always been a critic of Nif. I don't think he's a particularly good support. I think he's way too passive. And one of the things that I like about Krepo, as you say, is, first of all, he roams. He knows when to roam and how to use that to his advantage. But I also think he's got a great eye for an engage. He knows when to engage. He knows when to do the all-in. And that's been sorely lacking, I think, in Elements for quite some time under Nif. Now, just people have been asking in the chat, my understanding is Nif will move to coach. That's one of the reasons why they're making him watch. And this is by no means a permanent move. I think there could be a way back for him. But yeah, I'm kind of inclined on the surface of things. I think this is a good move in terms of personnel. But here's what I want to ask you, John. Here's what I want to ask you, okay? If we both agree to step up in terms of players, a lot of people have said the problem with Elements isn't the players. It's not the players. It's the infrastructure. They lack coaching. They lack analysts. They don't really put the practice in. They don't watch replays of themselves. Is Krepo necessarily going to be part of fixing that?
See, that is a really good question, because if any of you watched Thorin's Summoning Insight with Nif, it was very interesting in a way, because at that point in time, I definitely didn't like Nif. His performance at Worlds was by far subpar. I was very disappointed in his performance at Worlds. His early game catches that he got out was even ridiculed by the casters, which casters by Riot actually don't like to ridicule the players, which I think is kind of necessary in the form that Monte Cristo and Doa tend to do a lot. But what Nif said in the interview was they were talking about the analysis of the game that he had just played. And Monte Cristo is bringing up things that his coach should be going over. And Nif was like, no, we didn't talk about that. No, I don't know about the situation at all. I didn't go into the jungle and kill that jungler level 1 like I should have. And he even said, our coach is a Dota player. He wants me to play support Vigar, which, I mean, you can say whatever you want about support Vigar. I don't care about that. But the fact that his coach doesn't seem to be diligent enough in looking over these things. I don't think Krepo will be there to fix it. But the thing about Krepo is he is a superstar player. In not the sense that he's like Faker level player, but in the sense that he has all of these doors open to him, right? He can be a famous live streamer. He's always in the top 3 at least when he's live streaming, and like somebody like Bjergsen isn't streaming. He will always perform very well on LAN. You have guarantees of that. And he's a very, very good caster and analyst. So he has 3 of these gateways, and he said, I don't want to be a full-time streamer, but I will do it temporarily. That's what he did with the Cloud9 issue.
Yeah.
He said, I don't want to be a caster. I'm just going to take a break from that for a while. I'll do some things here and there to help out. He says he still has the drive to be a pro player. So that's what is making me think this is his final hurrah. This is the moment where he wants to win Worlds. And I don't think that's going to happen just because Korean overlords will eventually usurp him. But the thing with that is he is going to try his hardest to make sure the analyzing is done. He's going to try his hardest to make sure the team morale is up, and he's going to try his hardest to make everything work. If you watch him stream, he does break down critically and analyze everything as well as he damn well can. I think the thing is he's going to have some issues with team conflict if that doesn't work out and he doesn't get the analytical skills that he wants on the team. That's going to be the issue because that's something Elements is definitely lacking. And if Krepo can bring it, it would be nice. But there's a lot of work there that needs to be done.
So look, here's a final sort of point to end on. What do you think happens, okay, if Krepo comes in and he does 1 week and he plays well and they still lose games, and then it's a second week and he plays well but the team still loses because at the moment I think it's fair to say it's a dysfunctional team. It's not, there's something not quite right there. They've got the talent, we all know that. You know, it's just they're not firing on all cylinders for whatever reason. What do you think? There's a chance Krepo might be like, you know what, fuck this, I don't need this. He might just walk away, and that could disrupt their efforts even further down the road. Should he decide to do that?
I think if that does happen, if the team doesn't synergize and the team doesn't get better, I still would blame Krepo for that because I feel like what he needs to bring to the team is the analytical skills and the early game playmaking and shot calling that NIF didn't have. And if he doesn't bring that, I would still fault him for it because even though his play is really good and his roaming is really good and his shot calling is really good in solo queue, if that doesn't transition to LAN, it doesn't matter at all. Everything I said was completely irrelevant if he does not do that. This is just the potential that I see in Krepo, and something that I don't see in a lot of other supports in his region and particularly in general.
Do you think though? I mean, do you really think they can turn this round and they won't finish in a bit of a mediocre finish? You know, they can really do this. Are you that confident that, you know, with Krepo now they're gonna get to that place that you want them to, where we're actually talking about them going to Worlds and potentially doing well? I mean, as it stands, they're going to have quite a slog, I think, to climb up the table, at this halfway point.
I think if they do make it to Worlds, it will be the last slot available. It will be very close, and they will barely make it. The core problem with Alliance and now Elements is always and will continue to be the organizations that's organizing and managing the analytical skills. And I'll always fault this in North American and European teams, is the analyzing and the coaching is the most important part of the team structure in making a team succeed. You can pretty much plug and play any character or player that you want. The main thing that comes down to it is the coaches and the staff. And you can see this with all the World's champions that move to different regions and then suck suddenly. It's not a this player is amazing or this player is a god like Faker. It's this coaching staff is really, really, really good, and they have a winning formula. And that's something Alliance Elements has never had.
Well, I'm intrigued to see where it goes. I gotta say, I'm certainly looking forward to it. It's definitely going to be interesting. I mean, let's be honest, all the drama that's happened in the last couple of weeks for the EU LCS, they've really needed it because it's been a bit boring. Up until that point. So I'm super happy that shit's starting to get shook up and we're starting to see where the chips are going to fall. So we'll see how Krepo gets on. I don't necessarily think he's going to solve all of the problems, but in my opinion, I think NIF was a problem in that lineup, and hopefully he'll forgive me for saying that. Probably is not. No one ever does. But look, John, it was great to get your thoughts on that, and it was great that you were going to be the last caller. Certainly, wish you all the best, and hopefully you'll call in again sometime.
Yep, I definitely will. And
Oh,
before
right.
I go, I just wanna real quickly thank you for that discussion you had right before me with the caller. I'm actually also another individual who has had depression in the past, and it means a lot to me saying that you will actually help fans out who have requested you personally. And I know I've been watching you for a long time, and I've had like little depression nights where I've like I need more Richard Lewis, so I'll go back and watch everything that you've ever done. So I've watched like the grilled thing that you did with Thorn a year ago, even before I knew who you were. So I'm definitely looking forward to more content from you. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Well, that really means a lot to me, John. Sincerely, it really does. And like you say, I'm glad you're feeling, much better. And you know how to find me. Twitter, Reddit. I'm a pretty easy to locate presence. I don't try and hide from anybody. So if you ever want to hit me up, feel free to do so.
Yep. Thank you, man. Have a good day.
No worries. Yeah, you too, man. Take care. So there we go. Thanks a lot for that call, John. I also saw as well, just while that was going on, Sam, we had a raid from Miss Cookies, I think.
Yeah.
Well, but I don't mind. I don't mind the raids. Raids are good, right? They're not bad.
I don't know how these things work.
She brought more viewers than we had, so I'm really grateful for that. Thanks a lot, Miss Cookies. It means a lot to me. It's a shame you came in right in at the end of the show. If I'd known you were going to turn up, I'd have just cynically run a load of ads and pretended that I got stuck into a feedback loop. How do we turn off the ads, Sam? That's what I would have done. But anyway, thanks for coming to our channel and hosting my content. I really appreciate it. If there's ever some quid pro quo, get in touch. And to all the people who wonder who this fucking fat, bald asshole is, I don't know. Look me up on Twitter or something. Anyway, just before we go, I completely forgot something at the top of the show. And I know I said no spectate faker. I know I promised that, guys. But I'm going to break my promise just a little bit, okay? Sam, I'm gonna give you something. Apart from my eternal gratitude and love. All right? There you go. I've sent you a link. I want you to bring this up. There was a guy who calls himself the Squonky. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And he tweeted me in the small hours of last night. I was just about to drift off into the land of Nod. It was about 4 a.m. It'd been a long day. And the Squonky is an artist. He's a guy, as it says on his Twitter description, I draw things in my room. I think is what it says. I draw things in my room, which I think is brilliant. And he did a political cartoon, which I've never seen before in esports. I've never seen anyone do it. And he did it, and it was about the spectate fake thing, in particular the YouTube video I made about Mark Merrill. I'd like to just bring that up now while we're talking about it, if indeed you haven't already, Sam, because obviously I'm looking at a delay. Yeah. But this guy, say it's at the Squonky, which is spelled Squonky. And I just thought this cartoon was brilliant. It was as good as anything I've seen in a newspaper for a political cartoon. Even the little things in it, but perhaps that you won't pick up on straight away. Come on, full screen that shit, Sam. Come on. Yeah, cover my disgusting face. All right, have you done it? Are we now full screen? Okay, great. So you'll notice on the picture, it's me. That's me, apparently. That guy who looks like he's 50 years old. I mean, perhaps I should be more upset with the Squonky than I should be praising him. But that's me, that 50-year-old guy on the left. And then you've got Mark Merrill, sat there with his Rito top. That's Reginald he's using as a footstool, which is a reference, of course, to the bullshit fine that he gave him that I mentioned in my video. And it's even the little things. If you look at the list, things I like by Mark and things I don't like by Mark, you'll notice that the two correlate. So it's like player rights, players' homes. I like Twitter rants, but I don't like bad PR. I like watching LOL, but I don't like spectating. I like name calling, but I don't like toxicity. I like company policy improvement, but I don't like criticism. And it's just such a beautifully astute drawing. I am so... Honestly, this was like... I ranted in my YouTube video. This drawing says everything I said in 50 minutes in a picture. It's fucking brilliant. And if you're watching this and you want to, help this guy, and you fucking should. Like, I've already called my editors today. I'm like, this guy's a fucking phenom. We've got to get this motherfucker some work. He's so talented. So I'm already trying to get him in at the Daily Dot. And I certainly hope that works out. But if you're a publication, reach out to this guy. He's called @the_squonky on Twitter. He's a fucking genius, clearly. If he can knock this together in a short amount of time, you should totally support him. If you're watching this show, I would urge you to go and tweet at him and say how good you thought his drawing was. There was a thread about it on Reddit earlier. Comment on that, and just give this guy some support, because we don't have a political cartoonist in esports, and I think it's such a brilliant niche. And maybe even Esports Express, if you guys can tell Esports Express about him, this guy, even though I want him at the Daily Dot, do you know what I want more than that? I just want this guy to get paid, and I want this guy to get recognized for what is a brilliant piece of work, and I'm sure he'll produce more to come, because esports is rife for lampooning. So maybe he's a good fit for the Esports Express. Hotbit, if you see this, give this motherfucker a job, please. So thanks to all of you guys anyway for watching the show. I know we had some funny stuff at the start that wasn't even linked, talking about Delivery Man and Australian paedophiles and all of this stuff. And then we went into CSGO for a bit. We kind of came back, and then we had a serious talk about depression, and then we had Anders come in. It's a strange episode, but that's what this is why I like to do the shows. This is why I like the shows. Anything can happen. It's organic. It's not forced. It's not bullshit. And the people who drive it, of course, are you guys, the audience, So great to get you guys watching this. And again, I know we've talked about some serious stuff and some not so serious stuff. Hopefully it's been entertaining. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I want to thank all the people for calling in. I want to thank Anders for calling in. I definitely want to thank the Squonky for a brilliant drawing. And of course, Sam for doing his best to make the show look like it has production values despite being an incompetent mess. So I think we'll kill trash talk there. Hopefully not permanently, but who knows. Great show. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you same time next week. Peace out.
Thank you.